Is Wuwa, or does Wuwa have the best anime fight scenes in Gacha? No. That's objectively true. If you don't believe that to be true because you're like, it's the best to me, that's fair. But there are some objectivities to things. Even if you perceive something to be the best and they're the best to you, that does not make them the best hands down, without question. And there is debates that can be brought up easily to debunk such claims. Obviously, this is being spawned because of ZZZ. Whatever the comments get into, obviously you're gonna have your Kurobas come out and defend it regardless. And then also you're gonna have your ZZZ fans come out and also attack them back with whatever, regardless. But is there a definitive way to figure out they are truly delivering the best anime fight scenes in Gacha? If a random Joe Smoke came up to me and he's like, when it comes to cinematics, when it comes to just, them animating scenes for us to witness as if this playing out on screen like a animated scene, I'm looking for that. Me, Joe Smo. I'm looking for that. What do you recommend? I play ZZZ and Wuwa. So if Joe Smo came up to me and that's what he's looking for, that's his criteria, ZZZ wins that debate. I would send him there first, right? If that's what he's looking for, why people, if it's not even clear, if some woo-wah person is like, no, like there's defense, that's subjective. No, it's not. It's actually not. That's hypothetical that I just brought up. There's not a subjectivity to it. You should obviously, if you play both games, send them to ZZZ first. They would get their cake there more. They would have their fill and be fulfilled. That quest will be an S rank. You will have achieved better. Sending them to Wuwa will get you an A. I'm not saying that Wuwa is the worst in any way. I'm not even saying it's bad in any way. The fight scenes are great. But they're not the best. If you think this is a debate, people, what are we debating here? So this is Floridale's fight scene, right? At the end, I watched it too. I was there in Gacha Smack stream, right? Because I'm not that far in the game myself yet. I started when it came out on PS, and I don't play that often. But when it comes to these fight scenes, if these Wuwa fans want a debate, if they want an actual genuine discussion, I want them to tell me how Miyabi's demo doesn't trump this. Just hands down, if we're talking people who are delivering out anime fight scenes in Gacha. So ZZZ has now been put on the table in terms of that question. How is this overshadowing Miyabi's demo? And we're just taking Miyabi's demo. We are being very generous here. Very generous. And I'll get to how generous this is. The reason why I say ZZZ hands down wins the debate in terms of what property is delivering out cool action scene, anime cinematics. The debate is that this is better than that, right? That's what Wuwa people's argument is. This is better. This is better than what ZZZ has to offer. Hands down, this is the best. What makes a good anime fight scene? What could we use to criteria or to quantify something being the best? In terms of this question, I think there's some decent points. There's only two that truly matter though. How epic the fight feels. Simple. How cool is the fight? And how well animated it is. These are the two categories that are just the essential to Joe Smo is looking for anime fight scenes. So how does Kuro deliver, right? I think their fight is really cool. I think it's epic. I also think it's super well animated, right? But if this was a competition, if this was just like the Gacha Game Olympics, if we put ZZZ in the competition, well, now we're comparing the two. What ranking would I give these guys? Easily, when it comes to cool factor for Wuwa, they get an S. It was a pretty cool fight. I felt like it was epic, grand scale, cool. The hype was there in the moments. In terms of their animation, I think they get an A. Now, granted, I come from a lot of things. If we were to put this debate into perspective, like we were to give it an analogy, Bleach, its anime fight scenes are also epics, they get an S. Also Mob Psycho, they get an S. When it comes to animation, Bleach gets an A. Mob Psycho gets an S. That's the kind of dynamic that we're swinging. ZZZ, when it comes to their fights, I say their epicness gets an S. I can understand if it gets an A for people. But in my personal category, I do not feel like they don't deliver on some vibe of cool. On some rule of cool, I think ZZZ quite delivers. But when it comes to animation, ZZZ gets an S, right? Hands down. How are we gonna like scale these two, right? How are we gonna like, let's compare numbers if we want to, right? How long was this fight scene? Guess what? Florida's fight scene, I timed it. From the moment of that, like when they started the cinematic, from the end fight, it's a minute, right? We're not counting the little moment where he's holding somebody and then he's clashing with the sword and then bam, the fight begins. We're not counting that whole sequence. That's not part of like an animated fight sequence. That's just like a moment that leads into a fight. Any game can have that. I wouldn't, if that showed up in Honkai Star Rail before a boss battle, that's not a fight scene. The fight scene though, the thing in question, the best anime fight scene in Gacha, it's a minute long. What about Miyabi's demo, right? Because that's the thing that I am bringing into the question. Miyabi's demo, being generous, cutting out anything that could be temporarily categorized as still moments in terms of what the Joe Smo was looking for, right? If this anime fight scene is what the Joe Smo was looking for, he's got a minute of it in here. In terms of what he's looking for, I cut out as much as I could. He has a minute and 20 in Miyabi's demo. That's one singular demo. This is the end of a climactic story quest. You don't get fight scenes like this often in this place. In the Kuro space, in the Wuwa space. Joe Smo's not gonna get his cake very often. In ZZZ, he's not only gonna get more, he's gonna get it more often. But regardless, take out the more often. He still gets more. He still gets more time of epic, cool things. What he was looking for, my recommendation, if I'm being an honest Joe as well, should be ZZZ. Anyone who argues otherwise, anyone who tries to say that Wuwa is the best anime fight scenes in Gacha, is Wuwa the best anime fight scenes in Gacha? No. The animation, hands down, isn't the best already. But not even when it is at its peak. When it is at its peak and it can compete with some of the best, even though it does not clear in my personal preference, it's just not the best. I'm not out here to be a ZZZ stan. You guys, I will defend Wuwa where it earns its defenses, right? You guys want to say that the game is more complex than ZZZ? I agree. You guys want to say that the game has more high-def visuals than ZZZ? I agree. The game is definitely more complex. If somebody wanted complex combat, right? Not crazy fun combat, or depending on the combat they're looking for. If they wanted complexity, well, let's go to Wuwa. There are things in that Wuwa does great, that it always does right, or that it even does the best in the genre. Best anime fight scenes in Gacha. If that is the question, if Wuwa has the best anime, it's a no. It is, right? I don't see this stuff in the ZZZ space, right? We did not pose the question. But even still, just the unbridled amount of people that are in this comment feed, when we're just considering Miyabi in this discussion, none of the extra character demos or animated fight age and story, Miyabi only. Miyabi. And even still, with only that on the table, when you pose this question, but somehow his comment section is filled with people who are clowning on ZZZ as if there's no feasible way that that game could be considered better when this question is posed. I don't get this like unbridled hate for another game and just this unreasonable amount of self-glaze for a minute worth of fighting. A minute. Y'all are glazing a minute. A single minute. And that's the only one being put into question. Like self-glazing a game to the point that you are unable to even accept that another game could possibly have done it better. Right? Unable to. I just see it littered in here. I went to look for some ZZZ cutscenes, and honestly, these guys must be joking. What cutscenes did you see? And how many? Cause, buddy, you're glazing a minute. The Wuwa community is weird.
Putting down something doesn't make you look better. Putting down, for example, putting down Tekken 8 doesn't inherently make Virtua Fighter 5 a more appealing game. That is not how that works, dude. In fact, to many people, it makes that person look almost like questionable. It makes like some of their questions of like, oh, so what are your actual intentions if you're trying